Alright, are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? The Imperium's 10 worst jobs by Luton. We're finally going to learn. I'm going to be educated on the worst jobs in Warhammer, which is quite scary to think about. I think the worst job number 1 is Servitor. I'm going to call it now. But let's find out. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. War never changes. When people forget their duty, they are no longer human. They become something less than beasts. They have no place in the bosom... In the bosom? They have no place in the bosom of humanity? Okay. Okay. Choice of words. Nor in the heart of the Emperor. Let them die and be quickly forgotten. Holy Synod of the Adeptus Ministorum. The worst Imperial jobs.
When we look at the lives of those serving the Imperium, we must also understand that it is assumed that all of their service is at the behest and honour of serving the Emperor of Man and the Imperium itself. Now, while the official line from the Administratum would be that to give yourself in whatever means are required for the betterment of the Imperium is a noble cause, just and above all else a required task, it's worth remembering that these people are still humans serving in the Imperium, not superhuman Astartes or fanatical religious zealots, not cultish machine worshippers or drug-crazed...
I always forget that there are like just regular everyday humans part of the Imperium, because you don't really hear about them.
Gang members, just your average person trying to stay alive and do the best that they can. Now, while undoubtedly citizens of the Imperium know that they give to a greater cause and are indoctrinated from birth into the Imperial truth, at the same time you can't escape the harsh realities of some of the worst jobs imaginable for those poor saps who end up designated with such a plight in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Also, I think a short disclaimer is in order. By our standards, most jobs in the Imperium are often not really what you would quantify as jobs. You might simply be compelled by your seniors toward a role that then becomes your lot in life.
I think that's good to establish that there's a difference between jobs and roles. Because a lot of the time, you're just told to do something and you're just gonna do that. You don't really apply for jobs, I don't think. You're just like, well, you're gonna be doing this now. Good luck. Or not good luck. Jobs are more like being in a clan in 40k. You probably get born into jobs or certain roles. I would assume, based on like if your family did it, maybe. Yeah, you do a job and then your descendants inherit it. Man, that would suck to be born into a shitty job and you can't get out of it. I guess that happens in the real world too, though, doesn't it? Career paths on a factory world are limited. True. A lot of your opportunities are decided at birth by who your family is and where you live. I feel like we don't really talk about it, but it's true. The Imperium is propped up on a pile of misery and suffering. So is the real world.
No true unified or standardized currency system within the Imperium itself either. To do so would be challenging, if not impossible, given the distant scale and general instability of the Imperium as a whole. While hive cities, for example, may use credits within them, or other planets operate on a more basic bartering system, some even using coinage, there's also the Throne Gelt, which is likely as close to being a universal payment as exists, and this is often used by, say, rogue traders and inquisitors who are travelling between systems. Overall, though, there's no unified economic system. It's all based on tithes and requirements for the Imperium's needs. It's all fairly inconsistent. While some jobs are paid and unpaid, it's often unlikely that you're going to have a literal choice in what your assigned lot in life is. People aren't going to be going out to school and then choosing a vocation, although obviously for some jobs, some roles, some level of moderate education is required so that you can best interact with the materials and data slates that you're having to handle.
This has opened a new can of worms. How I don't actually know how the economy works in this. Like, it's saying that most, like, you don't really get paid for your jobs? Like, how do they buy things? Is it like, how does it work? Like, how does the economy work? I'm so interested in this. I want to know how it works. Like, do they have grocery stores? I guess it's like a economy that's always at war, so they wouldn't have like traditional grocery, like, I don't like, yeah, rationing. It would be like during like if we were at war, you were allocated just barely enough corpse starch to survive. Paid, Stim, you work for the Emperor. Think not of payment or greed. Okay, fair. Everything is on the back burner because they have to keep the wars going. Macro level economy is based on trade, micros, whatever the planet's currency system is. So it basically operates like a country at war that's been at war for a long time. So there's not much economy. Because don't they say, historians and economical people, don't they say that when a country is at war, it like destroys the economy? But then after war, economy booms? I feel like that's what happened to Canada. I feel like they said after the war, our economy boomed. But during the war, our economy tanked. Okay.
But you as an individual are an unimportant speck in the grand scheme of the Imperium, and you will do what is required of you, because that is your reality. Moreover, most of the Imperium trades in commodities. This can be raw materials, military hardware, and very often humans. So more than likely you are an asset and will be utilized however the Imperium sees it. The best way to visualize currency in the Imperium is that it's all system specific for the most part, and within a hive, for one, you are likely never going to leave, and so its credit system would be very specific to that location. There's no need for it to exist outside of that. Think of it like company money. You get paid by the person you're working for, who then also happens to simultaneously produce all of your other requirements. So you then are being paid by and paying back into that same company. It's a good way to basically regulate what the citizenry are using and ensure that everybody gets their fair or perhaps basic requirement share of things. Now you think you've got a worse 40k job in mind? Well, throw it down in the comments and maybe I'll include it in part 2 of this if I do a follow-up. And if you guys enjoy this and we open it up to even some more loose speculation for different parameters and different aspects of Warhammer 40,000, this could become an ongoing accompanying series. So now in no actual order of horror, to begin with, Servitors. Now for reasons we won't get...
I knew it! I knew Servitors would be here! I feel like this is like the most horrific thing. One of the most horrific things in Warhammer. They scare me so much. They absolutely terrify me.
Get into here within the Imperium, any advanced state of artificial intelligence is aggressively outlawed. So instead, the ever-ingenious humanity of the future has found a fantastic solution to get around this problem, because we are, after all, always such great problem solvers. The solution? Well, as is always the case, there is a plentiful supply of human plebs, criminals, and general undesirables. So how about we part lobotomize them, hopefully they get the gift of being mind-wiped, and then fuse what's left of their still living but now eviscerated carcasses into a somewhat functional cyborg.
This job! What the heck? Even describing it, half lobotomized, so they're not even fully lobotomized in some cases they're like sentient, some of them, and they have their memories. Less of a job and more of a tool. Oh, I don't know, man. Retail's like that. Wow.
It's not really AI and it's not really human. Problem solved, everybody's happy. Except likely the unwilling participants of becoming a servitor. Servitors are a vital part of the Imperium, carrying out tasks too dangerous or too enduring for humans to want to take on the role. Although if no servitor were available and push comes to shove, you know that somebody's going to have to install that hyper dangerous fuel system, and it's not going to be any officer types.
There's an excerpt from a book with an Inquisitor is being shown the process of how a servitor is made. Absolutely horrific. Whoa! They detail the process in a book? Eee. I mean, at least that would be a cute servitor. I hope they fully lobotomize me, though. I'd be fine with it if I was fully lobotomized, because, like, I'm not gonna care. But they have to thoroughly, fully lobotomize. It can't be a half job.
While servitors are questionably necessary, they are a sad and incredibly depressing portrait of the dark future. And it's very questionable, given the fairly immoral state of humanity in the 41st millennium, just how well lobotomized these individuals are if they're not mind-wiped. Servitors, while carrying out their instructed functions, if left to their own devices, have been seen to become confused and disorientated, sometimes found in a lost corner of a starship or missing in the maze of a hive city, babbling to themselves with a sea of incomprehensible speech, with perhaps some scant details of their former selves and former lives, perhaps trying to formulate some cognition or sense of who they were before. Worse still, we hear stories of people who undergo surgery appearing to be under anesthetic, but are in fact just paralyzed and fully conscious. So it broaches the possibility that some or even many servitors are actually fully aware of the lives they are living and with full awareness and memory of even their former lives, but who then simply lack the ability to speak or even control their own bodies, trapped in a silent, monotonous and potentially unending agony in the prisons they have been physically melded into. One of probably the most common and unpleasant tasks to partake in within the Imperium would be working in its vast factories. Now, planets with hive cities will usually...
Manufacturing? I don't see how manufacturing can be compared to being turned into a servitor. The Mechanicus once assassinated an Inquisitor, but copied her personality over to a bunch of servitors. Whoa. OSHA definitely doesn't exist here. I'm guessing they don't wear PPE either.
be spattered with important resources, and their factories will then churn out any number of processed materials necessary for the functioning of their hive and or required by order of the Imperium off-world. The administrators and governors will not care how these orders are fulfilled, only that they are completed on time as required. This subsequently means the conditions for workers are just about as awful as you could imagine. Toxic, acrid air, long 20-hour shifts, token pay, and squalid, cramped living conditions.
20-hour shifts? So you maybe get to sleep for 4 hours if you fall asleep like immediately after work? Holy... What do they do to the people who fall asleep while they're working? I don't want to know. Turn them into a servitor, probably.
Still, for most people at this level of society, it's probably the best they could hope for. Upward mobility is not a thing, and the only other options being to slip into vagrancy and an underhive of horrors. Even then, this is a class of citizen who no one will blink an eye if somebody goes missing for whatever horrible reason, and still grinding day after day in a factory of hot, dangerous, and likely condemning you to a slow, agonizing death as your body is ravaged by fulfilling your work quota, coupled with the slow poisoning it receives every day, is hardly an appealing alternative, but it's the best that many can hope for. An Imperial Guardsman. Now, while a Guardsman is obviously an honourable and respected role for those in the Imperium, because frankly anybody forced to face down a 40-foot-high lumbering alien killing machine who will in all likelihood either cleave you in two, strip the skin from your body, leaving you running around screaming like a skin.
Hey, it's my boy! It's the Flayer Necron cult. Let's go!
Animal, or just bludgeon you to a pulp, or maybe bombard you with projectiles full of acidic, boring maggots, deserves a reasonable level of respect, even if that service was in fact non-consensual. As with many military roles in the Imperium, Guardsmen serve with a duality of horrific warfare experience coupled with unceasing immortal honour. Because of the extreme casualty rates, most Guardsmen are equipped with simply a lasgun, because why give them more than that when they're not going to be around to use it?
True. I mean, I don't fault them for that. Why give them more than that when they're just gonna die, like, immediately? Like, what was the survival rate of a guardsman? Wasn't it like 24 hours or something? It was super low. 15 hours. Wow. It's like, why waste the good weapons on them? They're just meant to be cannon fodder. 15, Commissar Stim is being optimistic. Hi, Odious. Yeah. Wow, 15 when deployed. You survive more than a day? That's a veteran. Dang.
A lasgun being a weapon often referred to as a flashlight because of its extremely poor effectiveness.
Their lasguns are being called a flashlight? Oh my god, that is quite the comparison there. Dang.
against the severe threats faced by the Imperium. Other heavy weaponry for its soldiers are available, as well as some devastatingly powerful tanks, ordnance and air support, but for your average man on the ground, bad luck, you get the lasgun. While Imperial propaganda will tell the glory of serving in the Imperium, the reality is fairly disconnected from this stirring and glorifying rhetoric. The phrase battle of attrition comes quickly to mind for many guardsmen who will not receive much if any personal body armor, unlike their superhuman Astartes saviors. Nope, you're going into battle with the shirt on your back, and as an individual, no one is going to be stopping to help you when you lose a limb or worse.
Oh, that's actually a good point, though. Do they have like medics like a normal army would? I don't think I've ever heard anything talked about as in medics. Or do they just count their losses? Yeah, they do. They're few and far between. They're probably saved for like the important people too. Like I don't think they would waste a medic on guardsmen. They do, but most don't make it that far. There are medics and sister hospitaller, or there are medica and sister hospitaller. Medical servers. Well, that makes sense. Medical server skulls. They're probably like only saved for like higher position or higher rankings though. Like I can't imagine they would waste. If it's a small group of medics, I can't imagine they would waste them on guardsmen who aren't expected to live long anyways. That's a problem. The problem is a lot of injuries to tend, yeah. Actually, very few guards get injured because they mostly just die right away, true? Yeah, most guardsmen would die before medics have a chance to treat them. Makes sense. Didn't we learn, I think maybe in Bricky's first video I watched, that about the Space Marine factions that the guardsmen are more likely to drown in blood. That's like one of the major ways of dying is just drowning in blood, because so many of them die, and if you get smushed into the dirt and you can't breathe, they keep moving over you.
And the word expendable will be very much on your commander's lips. Now, if it isn't bad enough that you're facing a nightmarish host of Xenos, your commissar will be standing right behind you, ready to kill you or your newfound friends on the slightest hint of your hesitation, or perhaps simply to just motivate those around you. Unless you have qualified for a specialist division or an elite force within the Guard, you're more than likely going to become Operation Human Shield. And if by some miracle you manage to survive the horrific conditions of battling alien horrors with little more than a gun that shoots light, having watched many around you die in the most unbearable of circumstances, and then still have your sanity intact, not to mention hopefully not having your body be completely broken, there's nothing to say that an orbiting Astartes or Inquisition may not simply decide that things are not going quite as well as they'd expected, and decide that in fact an orbital bombardment might best serve the fast resolution of the situation.
Oh my god.
Your service is appreciated, Guardsmen. If you feel like—
Thank you for dying for us. We're actually just gonna blow up the planet anyways. Or we're just gonna nuke that spot right there. Thank you for dying for no reason. We're just gonna nuke it.
if you're having a bad day and want to voice your concerns to those around you, this is not advisable. Commissars will be standing by to silence you for potentially damaging unit morale, but like so many aspects of the Imperium, the most hollow element is the fact that in serving your family, your planet, and your Imperium, you will not be remembered and will be 100% left behind if the situation warrants it. You will not be receiving a flashy service or your family informed of your demise. You are but one of millions upon millions of soldiers, and while some planets are focused around specialist skills and military—
Wow, that looks so cool. Look at that as a Tyranid. Looks so cool. They're big stompies.
training, many more are unwitting or even unwillingly drafted. You will not receive special genetic engineering. You get your gun, your orders, and a direction to advance. Now get on with it, Guardsmen, before your own officer—
Imagine fighting that thing. Like, what do you do? What do you do in this situation? Do you think there's anyone brave enough to do it like in the video games and the movies where they like climb up its legs and jump onto its face and try and stab it in the brain? You think there's any like people that try and do that? Like, I know they're trained to shoot it, but it's either that or get shot in the back of the head for fleeing. Yeah. I just want to see someone do it like Legolas style. You know, when he like jumped up there and stabbed it. Do you think they would get a medal for that? Fix bayonets, attach bayonets. That's an Imperial Knight's problem? Oh, true. That still counts as 1. Yeah, exactly. It still counts as 1. You actually see Guardsmen fight a Bio-Titan in Space Marines too. Oh, cool. I'm excited to play it.
To shoot you for failure to follow command. Next, in direct contrast, is the dull monotony of bureaucracy. You are the grease and oil in the machine as an administrative scribe. While many lives in the Imperium are pain-ridden and lives of frustrating physical agony, there is an argument to be made that endless perpetual administration is equally unbearable. The role of an administrator or an administrative scribe is to perpetually carry out tasks that must seem simply entirely pointless in the grand scheme of things. Your daily tasks lost amid a vast ocean of information. Your whole being lost in reams and reams of paper trails, and even the purpose and intent of your tasks are potentially lost to meaning, or possibly even no longer required, having been long forgotten about. Billions of clerks, scribes, and general admin staff work tirelessly to manage the Imperium at every tier. Compared to others, this may seem like a sweet job to land yourself, but imagine having to do the same thing every day without...
This is the worst. This is the worst. I could not do this. I could not do this. I would rather we made a servitor than do this. I have tried to do administration jobs before where it's just like data entry, and it literally sucked the soul out of my body because it was the same thing every day, all day, just inputting numbers. And it was, I literally blacked out at work, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Where am I? I don't think I could do this job. This would be torture. This would be agony. It would make me actually go insane. I think this job would break my mind. I couldn't do it. The ADHD in me couldn't do it. No.
Without end, without opportunity, and without meaning. In many respects, it's the closest thing to hell for many. Pointless tasks with no thanks or appreciation, no sense of really contributing anything to the greater whole, cold, harsh working conditions, still subject to the same brutal rules and regulations that dictate all Imperial life. Indeed, the very nature of the complex bureaucracy that is strictly enforced allows little room for error. Regulations, forms, protocols, and process is your life. Worse perhaps is to live a life of blind ignorance of the goings-on beyond the walls and confines of your endless daily data processing. Many administrative positions are considered hereditary as well, so you'll be committed to a life of permanent placement facing logic engines and cogitator workstations. For an administratum scribe working in their specific sub-departments, all must be recorded, catalogued, completed in quadruplet, processed, and then as long as centuries later, finally archived. The whole process is grindingly slow and dull beyond the strongest possible interpretation of the word. And as a final insult, you must fulfill your role accurately and efficiently for the entirety of your servitude. Failure to do so risks intervention by the Inquisition. Administrative departments who have failed to maintain an acceptable level of efficiency, or worse, make a catalogue of errors, may be subject to mass summary executions by Inquisitors for crimes against the Imperium.
I think that I would like purposely make a mistake so that they killed me. Because I don't think I don't think I could do that job. I would just purposely like fuck everything up and be like, well, take me then. Take me. What are you gonna do about it? Oh, you're gonna kill me? Great. Sounds good. Name a time and place. The Watcher in the Rain touches on that subject in a really interesting way. Highly recommend. I've never heard of that. I will look it up. Kill you? No, then they make you a servitor? Well, as long as they lobotomize me, then I feel like that would be better. I'd rather not think than do that every day. But then, I don't know, living in like constant pain, being half aware, but not able to move your body would also really suck. I actually don't know what's worse.
As a simple cog in a machine, you could also unknowingly participate in a scheme of upward conspiracy and corruption and be judged for this without even having been aware of doing so. A thankless, soul-destroying job where you'll likely never see anything beyond the incarcerated walls of your administrative vault sector. Now, the human batteries, otherwise known as psykers, used to fuel the Emperor atop of his golden throne. Unsanctioned psykers are continually hunted by the Imperium, and when discovered they will likely be transported off-world to return to Terra in what are referred to as the much-feared Black Ships. As an unsanctioned psyker, you'll be assigned to one of two roles for the Imperium. training to a full operating psyker or a psychic human battery to fuel the Emperor and the Astronomican's daily required injection of psychic power. Unsanctioned psykers represent a great threat to populations as they run the risk of unwittingly becoming a portal for demonic incursion.
I would love to be a psyker. I think that's the best job so far. I know it's really dangerous, but you have like magical powers fueled by chaos. You might get torn to shreds by a demon, but it's better than doing math all day. No, you wouldn't. I mean, I would rather be torn to shreds by demons than do math all day.
Those imprisoned within its cavernous, permanently dark, freezing cold holds on the journey back to Terra, with thousands of other unfortunate members being probably the most harrowing part of the ordeal, as these untrained psykers will expel their panicked and fraught emotions all around them. As such, only the most mentally strong Sisters of Silence will crew these vessels so as to be able to withstand the constantly soul-numbing despair of the incarcerated amateur psykers.
Classic Stim being heretical. Or maybe Big E will eat you, don't forget, 1,000 a day, that's true. It would be my honor to be devoured by the Big E though. The highest of honors. The issue is probably the more going slowly / quickly insane. I feel like honestly every job so far you would be insane doing though. So like that's just standard now. I don't really consider that negative. Psykers put in a coma and stuck in a Navy ship to create the Gellar field so the ship can move through the warp would be pretty horrific. Yeah, that would be pretty horrific. I wouldn't want to be a navigator. Nope. I don't think I would like that job. Nope.
For the majority of these poor souls, upon reaching Terra itself, their fate will be psychic disintegration, as they're consumed by the Emperor and the Astronomican, their very mind, soul and body being consumed in agonizing psychic fire, and their bodies and brains are burned to ashes. But it does keep the Imperium's lighthouse lit for another day at least.
I like how casual he says that. It's like, well, you know, their bodies and their brains are going to be burnt into straight ashes, you know, like literally disintegrated. But you know what? Kept the light on for one more day. just a minor cost. Maybe if you're lucky, you'd get to be a Space Marine psyker. I like to think that when psykers get eaten by Big E, it just sounds like that Lego Yoda death sound. Yeah, navigators or nobility. Well, I mean, at least they have that. At least they have a title, right?
An unpleasant but perhaps at least highly appreciated task to carry out in your service for the Imperium is that of refueling a starship warp drive. And this has scant documentation on who specifically carries out this role, but it is described as being similar to a funeral procession. Those chosen to carry out the task will begin by leaving an airlock to cross the service deck of a ship, wearing robes of grey metallic thread connected up with valves of long cabling, all wearing thick lead gloves as they carry their heavy metal caskets upon their shoulders. The service staff's eyes, nose and mouth will be similarly fitted with these connective valves, the unknown material they carry within these caskets evidently being extremely hazardous, for as these individuals cross to their objective, their flesh, skin will slowly cook and be burned away. This process being described by tech priests as the most perilous operation a vessel could undertake, barring actual combat. As the procession—
What? Excuse me? What the fuck? Huh? Oh my god. Their job is to walk across the ship and die? They're literally just like outfitted to die? Like, well, this is an honor. You get to refuel the ship. Now you will slowly burn to death and suffer horribly, but it's an honor. Oh my god!
Of staff would approach the warp drive central column, the casket carriers would become even further physically damaged and even start to disintegrate, but being driven perhaps by the chemicals and gases being infused into them as pain suppressors and some chemical concoctions to enable them to carry out such a task, they lumber forward.
Wow.
But the closer the carriers come to the drive itself, the more they begin to stagger and the metallic robes deteriorate. Their infused chemicals keeping them barely standing as their bodies begin to quite literally fall apart. Chunks of flesh and matter falling from their person as they push on to deliver their...
What? How do they not have a more efficient way of doing this than a little husk of a corpse hopped up on drugs trying to refuel the engines? How? How do they not have a better way of doing this?
Their fuel to the drive. The casket would be finally pushed into a socket of the drive column as some of the carrier's limbs would detach and strips of muscle and bone hang down from their gaping robes. Servitor-like machines would collect the remains of the carriers and scrape these into yet more caskets before tech priests offer prayers to the machine god. With the last great effort, the final casket bearers would load their fuel into the drive before the doors would rapidly shut. The robed shells would now be retracted to the entry point, and the ship's captain might be heard to utter, "Emperor, preserve us," before finally turning away from the harrowing scene playing out on the engineering deck of their starship.
Wow. That's truly horrific and grimdark. Wow. This is intense. Holy. They don't have an STC for it, so this is the only way, I think. Because it's probably the cheapest way. Capitalism. I mean, the Imperial stuff. Wow. It's the cheapest way is just to dispose of humans this way. Yeah, they probably have more efficient ways, but humans are the cheapest. That's crazy. It's literally, that job is literally just sacrificial. The sacrificial lamb. The Mechanicus isn't allowed by faith to create new machines. Well, I know that, but I thought they would have an STC or something for, you know, like a way to refuel the ships. You think they'd have, I thought they would have discovered something by now. Well, I mean, they probably do, but like humans are cheaper, so.
Imagine life in something like the 13th century, essentially the Middle Ages, where anything like 90% of the population spend all of their time every day working the land. This is you!
This is you! Stim peasants, this is you! The feudal peasant! Look at this representation of our community. You made it into the video!
Life on a feudal world. There are a few citizens with specific jobs working stone and metals, but your average person's life is doomed to endless hard labour. This physically destroys...
Yeah, my giant castle in the background. Hey, look, one of you has a horse. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
...job is carried out from dawn to dusk, year-round, with the populace likely surviving on a meagre supply of its own productivity. A high mortality rate of disease and infection, industrial accidents with primitive machinery or domestic complications.
Look at those happy Stim peasants. This is like what a happy family looks like. It ain't much, but it's honest work. Yeah, you get fresh air. You get community bonding. You can literally see all the happy smiles. I love my back-breaking work for my princess. Don't you just love being a Stim peasant? I don't know how you could want for more than this. We even have there's even wheels and water, buckets of water, pails to poop in. I have everything I need. You have everything you need by the love of your Oshi. I don't know what else you could ask for, honestly. Like, this is the best job there could be.
Like no medicine to prevent women from dying in childbirth, this all in and of itself sounds hard enough of a life, but imagine, if you will, the job of a feudal gong farmer. Now, what is this scintillating job? Well, it's collecting the mess of medieval latrines and cesspits, bringing it manually outside of a city or a town to be used as fertilizer for farming. You do get the privilege of searching through the waste if you choose to find any valuables, and by the way, you also have to work only during the night. And here's hoping you don't pass out from the fumes you're inhaling and potentially drown in the stuff you're having to rake out every night.
Wow, that's who volunteers? Who volunteers to shovel the shit in the Stim peasant kingdom? It's the highest of honors. The most noble of jobs, yes. Yes. Real occupation in history, by the way. Wow. I mean, I guess in the feudal era, they had to have someone to shovel the shit away.
And for those on a feudal world to top it off, an Imperial administrator will be watching from an orbital platform, and that's about all the defences your planet has. So let's hope no blood-crazed orcs, hungry tyrannids, or immoral demons come wandering by. If you thought working a feudal planet or in a factory for material processing in a hive was bad, don't be so ungrateful, citizen. You have a privileged life compared to those poor souls working in agri-processing. While this is going to vary from hive planet to planet, some of the worst of this is processing what's referred to as corpse starch and ration biscuits.
Oh no, it's the corpse starch. It's the corpse starch stuff. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I've been dreading this part.
Both unpleasant in their own way. As populations for the massive ecologies known as hive cities become quite simply ridiculous, housing anything between 10 and 100 billion citizens, the need for sustenance is obviously difficult to provide for. And while you may be lucky enough to save up your credits and purchase a delicious chunk of rat meat, you're more than likely going to be enjoying some delicious ration bars or corpse starch. But how do workers produce such luxuries? Well, ration bars are best described as horribly greasy, generally unpopular, shockingly, and are biscuit bars to feed workers, serfs, and military forces.
Biscuit bars? They really take the time to form it into biscuits?
They're manufactured by harvesting bio-rich matter from ocean planets and worlds with seas, which then provides a protein-rich gruel. This, though, would be not enough to provide for the billions of citizens, so it must be instead fed to larvae of the Orochian bilefly. And when these larvae...
Wait, what? They're feeding it to larvae flies? Hardtack, but made out of maggots.
They reach an optimal stage in their life cycle when they're plump enough, the larvae are going to be pulped by workers and compressed down into the hard-to-stomach biscuit ration bars.
Oh,
the agri-workers doing this process will work in huge air-sealed pens that produce these plump fat larvae. If you're working in one of these places, then things are not going to be going well for you, and you're probably quite low down in your hive city as the stench and endless droning vibrations and material mechanical sounds of the bileflies is not one that many would choose to live with. Still though, it could be worse. You could be producing corpse starch, which is about as appealing as it sounds. This material is bland, filling, and relatively nutritious because it's basically reconstituted biomatter mixed with animals, plants, discarded organics, and of course rumoured to include human corpses as well. While this is undoubtedly frowned upon by various administrative departments of the Imperium, it's one of those things that a planetary governor is going to either sweep under the rug, play down, or full-on cover up.
So my choices are maggot biscuits or the remains of humans turned into biscuits. Maggot biscuits are human remain biscuits? And waste biscuits? Does that make you a cannibal if you eat it as a biscuit? I feel like that doesn't make you a cannibal if it's in the form of a biscuit. And it's like not meat. There are legit cricket protein bars on the market? Something about it being a maggot makes it worse. I can understand eating crickets. I would eat a cricket probably. But a maggot? I don't know, man. That's crossing a line for me.
It's never out and out a disclosed ingredient, but highly suspected that one way the population are able to be adequately fed is the mechanical reclamation of human biomatter, albeit then diluted by various other organic materials. It's like so many things in the Imperium, on the borderline of being acceptable. And when faced with limited options for feeding your population, the alternative being violent food riots, then it becomes a necessary evil. Pity though the workers who have to work in the stinking immoral environment where you must process endless stinking vats of biomatter, perhaps seeing some things that are going to be difficult to forget as you catch your eager 4 hours of rest before getting back into the production line. Now, I am yet to cover the assassins of the Imperium, but one aspect in being selected to work as an Imperial assassin is their pre-training. Now, as with most Imperial roles, it's quite unpleasant. But specifically, the role of the Eversor Temple, which disturbingly leans towards using the youngest recruits as they are less developed and therefore easier to bioadapt later.
I think Eversor is one of the worst ones too. But the upside is they're so hopped up on drugs that they probably don't dislike it. Right? Like, it is pretty bad in concept, but if you were one, they're so drugged up, they probably don't mind. They probably don't mind.
In surgery. To start off with, most recruits will be orphans from a death world, of which there are quite unsurprisingly a plentiful supply in the Imperium. These recruits, after some base training, will be transported to Terra, but en route they will continue to be trained by a survival of the fittest assessment. These very young recruits will engage in what can best be described as an ongoing battle royale of wills, initiative, and resolve. Recruits are required to survive on minimal food, even minimal oxygen, for days on end, as well as continual forced fighting between themselves.
Oh, never mind, this does sound bad. Oh, it's just Fortnite? It reminds me of like, was that, oh my god, what's that book called? Ender's World? Was it Ender's World? I don't know. There's many books about kids having to fight each other to survive, to be turned into weapons. Ender's Game. Yeah, thank you. Ender's Game. Ender's World. I was thinking Ender's Game. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that. Maybe not as bad, but you know, just take some young kids, we'll starve them, we'll torture them, we'll make them fight each other, and whoever wins gets to be tortured some more and turn into a living weapon.
This could be armed, unarmed, in near total darkness, or distracting aural and lighting conditions. Heat, cold, varying levels of gravity from the thin to the severe all will be factors in their assessment. When they eventually reach Terra, there could be anything below 1/10 of the original number of recruits who have survived this harrowing ordeal, or perhaps not at all if their assessors deem them unsatisfactory to requirements. The recruits, though, will then be organised by the temple they are best suited for. Eversor assassin recruits face, though, the further horror of being now forcibly bioengineered. These youngest recruits, who are essentially children, will be turned through this process into unstoppable drug-fueled killing machines.
Oh my god! This is so disturbing! My god! Because it's children, it's worse. It's just so bad. It's just so bad. Torturing little children. I can't.
To achieve this, the Medicus adepts will use a range of genetic adaptation, endoskeletal restructuring, bionic implants, and infusions of chemicals to turn the previously human youth into a nightmarish weapon that can barely be controlled by its own leaders. Their cerebral cortex will also be enhanced and the brain fitted with lobo chips. These will amplify the assassin's state of mind to either raging hate, pure determination, or extreme fanatical drive for the love of the Imperium at any cost. This whole process is unpleasant and far from risk-free. Many subjects will die of massive multi-organ collapse as their bodies struggle to handle the severe restructuring. And this is not to mention the inevitable side effects from being turned into a bio-enhanced, drug-fueled, borderline if not psychotic killing machine. Past this point, the assassin will continually attempt to balance the complex cocktail of chemicals that's fueling and simultaneously poisoning their system. Finally, at the end of all this, the assassin will be placed in cryosuspension, their bodies so drug-fueled and their own mindset so completely unstable that it's easier than keeping them actively conscious.
They hop them up, fuel them with drugs, and then like freeze them until they're needed? What the heck? They're literally making it like a weapon out of a person. They're like saving it until they're ready to use it. That's crazy. They are indeed human popsicles until they are needed. Did they? I was too busy being horrified, but did Luton say why they use children? I don't really understand that part. Just because they're easier to train when they're young and impressionable? Yup, you're launched like a missile when you're needed in a drop pod. Children are easier to break and easier to work with. Oh my god, this is so disturbing. I know I should be like edgy and be like, yeah, this is cool, but this is like so disturbing to me. I cannot do children movies and things because for some reason it really gets me. Children and animals. I can't. Oh, it makes me sick. I like my edge extra edgy. Yeah, fuck them kids, right? I'm super edgy and dark humor. I just can't. You only deploy an Eversor if the situation is everyone in that general area needs to die regardless of affiliation. So it's like everyone in the area needs to die, but we're not going to nuke the planet. So this is the solution. Or drop a human nuke.
For a mission, they're going to be placed into a drop pod and then fired down to achieve their task. Becoming an Eversor assassin is likely one of the worst jobs in the Imperium, as your life is nothing but soul-destroying pain and servitude to be stripped of everything you were and used as an indiscriminate weapon of the Imperium. Now, penal legions are...
Penal legions? Okay. In the end, it is a less glorified space marine. Yeah. Yeah, basically, I guess.
Are the dregs of Imperial society, so you can imagine these are some less than capable individuals. These are usually members of the Imperial Guard and PDF who have perhaps not been executed on the spot for their crimes and instead commuted to a life sentence in the loosest definition of the word.
Oh, these are like criminals? They haven't been executed yet? It's like, I guess they probably don't have normal prisons and jails. That makes sense, they would have horrible versions of it.
However, a penal legion can be easily made up of murderers, maniacs, thieves, in general criminal elements of society, or just those who were far too incompetent in their duties and have been sentenced to play some more mildly useful role for the Imperium. These legions, though, unfortunately, are basically the waste dump of human society and are forced to wear explosive slave collars that are more about turning the troops into human bombs than a disciplinary incentive.
The ones that don't become servitors? Wow. Yeah, I guess why execute resources, true.
March in a shambolic way towards their goal, or perhaps run if they're crazed, and then perhaps to just encourage those around them with whatever they're meant to be doing. Maybe a few of them will be blown up and detonated here and there. But is this the job we're talking about? Well, no. In fact, what we're actually sparing a thought toward are those tasked with maintaining control over these plebs. Penal legion
over these filthy plebs.
Overseers essentially have the unfortunate task of herding a bunch of shambolic, potentially murderous and psychopathic cats. Some of the penal legion will relish their role and accept their death running headlong into the enemy, but others may fall into mental ruin, just falling to the floor crying, unable to move. Others may try to run away or simply just lash out and kill those standing around them. As frustratingly soul-destroying as such a task is, those commanding a penal legion are usually well versed in dealing out punishment, cruelty and incentives to their force and will lay down brutal levels of discipline. Despite this professionalism though, it's still likely one of the most frustrating roles to have to command in, with a force who are potentially just as happy killing each other and themselves as they are the enemy. So now to...
Oh great, we get to finish with unknown horrors. I love it. I love it. Great. The penal legions don't sound that bad. I imagine if you're in charge of a penal legion, you're pretty messed up yourself. So it's like it would suck. I mean, it would suck, but it's not that bad. You have to like get control of these. Honestly, it kind of sounds like being a VTuber manager. But on to the unknown horrors.
I'm going to have to break your immersion. But the truest worst job that could exist in 40k is, well, whatever you can draw from your own imagination. Because this might seem like a cop-out, but it's actually the real bedrock of 40k. Because while it has embedded canon and non-canon lore, it's also a world whereby you as a participant are encouraged to use your own imagination. The civilian life of the dark future is very poorly documented, and really we only have scraps of information compared to the endless raging warfest that is ongoing between various factions. The civilian life of the Imperium is perhaps one of the most interesting aspects that exists, in the 40k universe. And if Games Workshop will not expand upon it, maybe it's time we start doing so ourselves with some wild speculations and imaginings.
Or we write our own fan fiction. You know? Just saying. Some really good fan fiction out there.
The whole thing with 40k is that the Imperium itself is so fractured and spread across countless systems with vast distances in between, it's really hard to focus in on some of the details of different worlds. Now this has happened very, very slowly over time with little fragments of information, but some could be, for example, nightmarish gulags, while others could be verdant, lush garden worlds of pleasure. Others could be more Earth-like with all the complex goings-on of human life that this entails, or you could be living in a horrific hive city or toxic choking forge world. Or how about a planet that's being cut off from the Imperium due to a simple administrative error, forced to go its own way with the vague hope of one day being rediscovered if it's not destroyed by some other alien process in the meanwhilest. And this for me is one of the most enjoyable parts of Warhammer 40,000. You can use your own imagination to build a whole narrative given the existing lore and framework of the factions within it. Often the world of 40k draws on real world history, and it's something that I really love the idea of doing in creating whole descriptions of planets and locations that are non-canon and entirely fictional. Perhaps this is something I'll find time to do, perhaps it's something you guys would be interested in me doing. In the meanwhile, worst jobs canon or not, tell me down below what's the worst thing you can come up with. I'm probably going to regret asking that, but let's see. As always guys, thanks for watching and thank you for your support. I'll see you in the next one.
Good video! Good video! Each man executed is a man who can no longer serve, and to fail in service to the Emperor is the greatest of sins. Lehman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves. What did you think was the worst job, chat? Out of all the jobs today, what was the worst one? I think the best one was the feudal peasant, and you better say yes to that because that is your job description, Stim Peasants. VTuber manager. I love my job. It's really fun. I couldn't resist making a manager joke. I will be the best shit shoveler in Stim Pakistan. It's called the Stimdom. The Stimpak Kingdom is called the Stimdom. Oh yeah, let's read the comments. Let's see what other people put down. I think the worst one was the guy writing math data entry. That was probably the worst one. The Stimdom, not the Stimdom. You know, like Kingdom, but Stimdom? Yeah. Let's read the comments of what the worst jobs were. Let's see here. Are people actually going to write comments about worst jobs? No, they're not. Conscious servitor. Yeah, being a conscious servitor would be truly horrific. Being a servitor that actually got fully lobotomized properly, I mean, at that point you don't care because you can't think. But being a conscious servitor would be really bad. Being an Eversor assassin, really bad. That one is probably going to give me nightmares because I don't know, when I thought of Eversor before, I just assumed they were like full-grown men because they would be the strongest, you know? And I'm like, that's not too bad. But a child Eversor assassin, that is like nightmare fuel to me. It does make one question why some people do not simply choose to end it. I wonder what the suicide rate is in the Imperium. I really do. It's gotta be pretty high. It's gotta be really high. But then at the same time, they're brainwashed into thinking, like, wanting to do it for the Emperor and the Imperium. Read about mortifiers and penitent engines to have nightmares. I don't want more. I don't want more nightmares. I'm already very impressionable. I think they hurt your family if you do. Oh. I'd rather be an Imperial Guardsman and die within like an hour. At least I feel like I'm doing something. You'd be doing well to survive the first hour of deployment. Penitent engines are messed up. Should I read what a penitent engine is, or will it severely traumatize me? Oh no, actually the worst job was the refueler. The refueler was the worst job. That was crazy. They were just like sent to their death. And I don't think that they were drugged up. It didn't mention they were drugged up. Hopefully they were, but they were basically said, put on this outfit and go walk out there in space and die, but also refill the engines up while you're out there. So this is gonna hurt, but make sure you put the fuel in the engine. Mortifiers are even worse than penitenti engines. But as a servitor, you live for a long time, and that would really suck if you're aware. Yeah, that would really suck. That's true. Because you don't have control over your body, right? Penitent engines have good-looking models? They give you a bottle of sunscreen and a bucket of radioactive fuel. Oh man, that's rough. What is this quote? For the weak sack of flesh that you so gleefully mock is no super soldier, no immortal warrior, no creature cursed by chaos like you. He is a man, an Imperial Guardsman drawn from some forgotten corner of the Imperium to fight for his species and for the safety of the people he loves. He is a factory worker, a farmer, a storekeeper, a father, a brother, a son, a mere man, and against creatures like you, teeming and numberless, powered by the very will of thirsting gods, he holds the line. He has held the line for 10,000 years. 07. That's such a good quote. Wow. Wow, that was great. He has held the line for 10,000 years. 07.